Alright, so we're going to learn how to use the digital darkroom and try to see how we can better edit our photographs in Photoshop. So you need to open an image that you think has good contrast, light, and everything else as far as good formal qualities, so you have a good image to start with. So I'm going to use this photograph. It might be an old one, but it's a decent landscape. So what we're going to start with is our simple edits. You're going to end up creating 4 total images, one being the original, so 5 when you're done, that show the stages of things you might go through while editing. Now everything that you learn will be things that you could use, but certainly not everything will apply to each image. So we have learned how to use adjustment layers, so we'll go to adjustment layers first and do curves. So I'm going to go to curves then, and on this histogram, I'm going to darken just a bit, and that's going to make the shadows and the clouds quite a bit better. And I'm going to, on the highlights, I'm going to bring this up just a bit so I can maintain some of this nice value up top. Alright, then I'm just going to click OK. Alright, we're going to be doing this in black and white, so then I'm going to go to a black and white adjustment layer after that and click black and white. I now have the options to play with black and white temperatures of color, so these will add contrast in different areas in my image. So I can play around here. Alright, so then just click OK when you're done. Okay, after that then, we're going to be laying this out on an 11 by 17 just to see, so you can understand what it'll look like at different stages. So whether you'd want to be done here, or whether you want to keep going. So you're going to go ahead and go File, New, go to Preset, US Paper, Size, Tabloid. Alright, and title this your last name, Digital Darkroom. Alright, and then just go ahead and hit OK. So it should make that 11 by 17 for you. We're going to want this to be horizontal. Unless your images are horizontal, then keep it vertical. So I'm going to go Image, Rotate Canvas, 90 degrees clockwise. There we go. So this will be my layout. So now in order to move it, I need to flatten everything. So I'm going to right click on one of the layers and go to flatten. So now I have one solid image, okay? And that's okay that it's flattened because we're going to work with this as our base starting point anyway. So I'm going to drag this over, alright, and put it here. So that's my first image. Then I'm going to go back to my image that I'm editing. So with this image then, what we're going to do now is we're going to add something called the vignette. So to do that, there's a couple options. There are things inside filters. There's other little adaptations to do this. The way that I like to do it the best is with something called a quick mask. So quick masks are way down on the bottom left down here. I'm going to click on that. Alright, then I'm going to click on the paintbrush. Then I'm going to choose a brush that's pretty big, so I can hit brackets next to enter and make this a little smaller. Alright, so about that big in relation to my image. I'm going to make my opacity pretty low, around 20%. I'm going to click right in the middle, or whatever the focal point is. So if you're using rule of thirds a lot, then maybe changing it to something else. So maybe this bottom puddle I want to make the focus maybe. So I'm going to then click, not click and hold, I'm going to click and move around, making it real rich and red in the middle. If it's not red, make sure you're selected on quick mask. Alright, so after that I'm going to click off of quick mask. I'm going to go way down to the layers, and I'm going to make a blank layer. And then I'm going to go over to the paint bucket. That's over here. I'm going to click on the paint bucket. I'm going to hit X on my keyboard, or click on the little curvy arrow to make black, and then I'm just going to fill the outside in. So now that's created a nice natural vignette using a quick mask. So then I can hit Control D, or go select deselect to deselect that. Now from here, of course, I can then play with opacity if I want to make it lighter, right, or make it darker. So depending on what kind of an aesthetic you want to create. The goal here is to make it somewhat natural looking. So if it's real dark on the edges, you may have not drawn enough with the quick mask all the way to the edge. So you want to make it nice and smooth. Alright, so then that's your second image. So I'm going to make this a smaller window. Right click, flatten, click Move tool, drag it over here. Alright, so there's my second one. Now, something that we had played with a little bit before is a channel mixer. So on this though, now that you have this vignette, we're going to go to Adjustment Layers, Channel Mixer. Channel Mixer is a great way to play with luminosity, which is the brightness of a lot of the values in the light. So I'm going to click Monochrome, because that's one color. I'm going to bring the constant down just a little bit, and then I'm going to start playing with some of these values, and you'll see how you really can make the image glow quite a bit. So I'm going to play with a balance of some of these tints and using red, green, and blue to get this glowing kind of contrast, and then click OK after you get it edited how you want. Then that's my third image. So I'm going to right click on it, flatten it. Alright, then I'm going to drag this over here. So now I have my third edit. Place that right down here in this little grid. Alright, after that then I have burning and dodging. So burning and dodging are over here. So we've used this just a little bit, but you're going to go to burn and dodge, which burn would be to darken and dodge is to lighten. So I'm going to click on burn to get started, and I want to choose areas that I want to darken. So like this building back here is way too punchy for me. So I'm going to zoom in, hold spacebar, and I want to make this darker. So I need to make the brush smaller. My exposure is at about 10%. I'm going to use midtones, and with burn then, you're going to darken and lighten. Now before you darken and lighten, what you're going to want to do is right click on your layer and duplicate it so you can see what effect it actually is having. So I'm going to then now start burning in areas that I want to have a little more depth, so darkness inside of it. So I'm going to be drawing inside here. Now it might not look like I'm doing much, but if I click the little eyeball, you can see that I've done quite a bit to make it a lot less punchy. So I'm going to keep doing this just a little bit, and you want to think about almost like a person drawing would, how you're darkening and lightening different areas. Well, to add just a little bit of drama to your image. So I'm going to move my way around my image now, looking for areas that I think would work well, a little bit darker. Alright, so I just darkened that just a little bit, which helps a lot to bring the focus off of the building completely and down and around. So now I'm going to go to dodge, and what dodge will let me do is lighten. So I want to bring out all these cool kind of brick textures and everything else around there. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to dodge some of these areas. Now that's going a little fast, so I'm going to hit Control Z or go to the history, and I'm going to bring the exposure down again to about 10 or 20%. Alright, then I'm going to draw on here real lightly with a small brush because it's fitting this size of this. If it were bigger, I'd make a bigger brush. And I'm going to start pulling some of these values out in various areas. So I'm going to go around and see what I could dodge to make it work better in my image. So I'm moving around trying to see what would be cool if it were dodged. So maybe like the edge of this, right? Bring some of the values back out here. Maybe the texture inside this piece of concrete. All right, maybe a little bit of edge on here. You gotta be careful with this because it can get real goofy real quick if you don't really think about it and wait and go. So now you can see a pretty big change inside some of the highlights. Now of course I can continue going with a lot of these little teeny details, especially if I want to make it real high def. I can work my way around making it really nice and bright and interesting with lots of texture to it if I want to. So that helps a lot, especially if you like HDR images, which are really high definition images. I'm just going to keep working my way around and seeing if I can make this look a little more in depth. So there we go. So we have from there to there. So quite a bit better contrast. So now I'm going to just take this copy. This is my fourth image, and I'm going to drag this copy over to here. Alright, so there's that. So then this last copy will be your final. So you're going to make this one your biggest image. So I'm going to move it over, hit Control T, and resize it, and hit Enter. So I have my final image. Now over here in these images, you're then going to take these and arrange them so that you can put your original in this little hole right here. So then I can go back to my original image if I want and just go back to the color version. Or if it's black and white, it's black and white. I'm just going to drag this over here and put this here. And then you'll be able to see this awesome kind of progression from a somewhat flat color image to a little bit better contrast, a cool vignette, higher contrast, and nicely placed together. You're then just going to throw your name in the bottom corner. Throw your name down here and share it. Alright, what I'd like you to do after that is I'd like you to save one copy of this final solo image by itself and share that in the same folder with this digital darkroom as final edit. So you're going to save it as still your last name, Final Edit, but there'll be a folder called Final Edit. So there you go. You have a really nice kind of understanding, hopefully then, of what you need to go through with all of your photographs to start getting toward a nice, finished, final piece of artwork, as opposed to that first snapshot that may not have everything it needs to have.